Again, I'd like to go through this. I'd like to give you an opportunity. What I'll do is, I understand I made a mistake and the deforestation resubmission was not available for you last night. So I'm moving the due date for that. That's to tomorrow. Now I want to remind you what that means. What does that mean? If you remember correctly, you had two opportunities. Your opportunity was to first get done as much as you could in class, have a group discussion, get that done, work on it over the weekend, and then resubmit it on Monday. That was the plan. I didn't see a lot of people resubmit it. Then I was told this morning I didn't open it up to the class. That was my fault. So I've changed the due date till tomorrow, and I'd like to go over it with you and identify some of the important points that they talk about. And there seems to be some confusion as to what to do with that chart at the end. Is that what I understand the biggest problems are? Okay. So let's go ahead and go through this together and see what we can do and come up with. So here, there was a few things that were interesting to me. It said, this is my only second year of farming. Can someone turn that light off? In the back, it would be nice if you paid attention. You're not even listening to me because you're talking still. So if I'm writing up here, I'm going over the stuff that I feel like is important. I'm the one who writes the tests, or at least I find the questions on standardized exams, so I would pay attention. If you have a question, you should ask it of me. I keep repeating this, and yes? Yeah, these are yours. I gave everybody has their own copy. So it says my second year of farming, and why is that second year of farming important? You would not know this, but it turns out that when you burn down rainforest, when rainforest is burnt down, the soil lasts for about, guess what? For how long? 2 years. And they put that into the story to show you that what people do, and they've been doing it for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years. They would burn down chunks of rainforest, they'd farm it, and then they'd move on to another place, and then the rainforest would retake that land. So that's what the people are used to. Of course, what's the difference between what's happening now and what happened then? Yeah.
We're not giving the area of land a chance to regrow, so the soil's just going bad.
That's right. When you're not giving it time to regrow because you have so much of it going on. As soon as something starts growing on it, and also we burn down much larger swaths of land. So instead of some little family burning down a couple acres of land and growing the food that they need, there's giant, these farmers burn down acres and acres of land, and then they start to try to farm that, and that'll last for about 2 years. And then after that why does it only last 2 years? Because of this, something that's very interesting. In a rainforest, maybe you'd expect it, I don't know, but because of rain. There's a lot of water that falls down, and then that water, because there are no roots, because there's no canopy, there's the dense vegetation that normally exists in a rainforest, all the soil gets eroded away and washed downstream. Nitrogen is already a big part of the system that's not available to a lot of plants and animals in a rainforest, let alone after you get rid of the vegetation that helps buffer that loss. So it says, already crops are growing poorly and had to get rid of the weeds. So they give you a number. It turns out that number is important, isn't it? If you've tried to do this assignment, you know that this is the number that you need for the chart in the back that so many of you have trouble. You see, they give you the answers here. $300 per hectare for fertilizer and pesticides, right? But the farmer thinks what? He can only afford what? 70. So he can afford 70, but it would cost him about $300 per hectare just to fertilize and weed the soil that from the burnt down forest. Well, what's he going to do since he can't afford it? What's he going to do, by the way? Yeah.
He's going to move to somewhere else.
Yeah, and do what there?
The same thing.
Same thing. He's going to burn down another section of rainforest. And that's what happens over and over again, is you just keep expanding this devastation that happens because of economics, because of the farmer needing to feed his, how many kids? Did anybody read it?
That was the logger.
Oh, the logger? How many kids does the logger have?
5.
5 kids. But it would be cutting down a forest. And he says, why don't we just plant trees? Because, rainforest trees are a very good source of some really fine wood. So why not use it for the valuable trees? And the logger says, why is the logging better than clearing, he asks, right? And what was his answer? What was the answer why he thought logging was better than, yeah?
Because he needs to make a living by feeding 5 children.
Well, yeah, I guess, but that's why it's the logger thinks it's better to grow logs. But what other arguments could he have, right?
Oh.
Besides the idea that, yeah, go ahead.
It's because they think the forest always grows back.
They think the forest always grows back. The trees are worth a lot. When you burn it, they feel you're wasting all those trees. You could be making money off those trees, right? So why not cut them down? Why burn them? Of course, I don't know if you know this, but the reason they have to burn it is because that's the only way you get all the nutrients come from the ash that falls onto the ground. So the soil in the rainforest is very sparse of nutrients. It gets sucked up by the ecosystem really quickly. So the soil itself is not very good for growing. It's when you burn the forest down and all that soot and ash hits the ground, that acts as a what?
Fertilizer.
As a fertilizer, yeah. Yes.
So what if they made, what if they just put that in the rainforest instead of burning it down?
Say that again?
What if they just put that inside the rainforest instead of burning it down?
And that's what they want to do. That's what this guy here wants to do. He wants to, what do you mean? Put the fertilizer in the rainforest without burning it down?
Yeah.
But then what do you do? How can you use the land? Remember, you have to also do what? What does a farmer need? He needs the land to plant his crops. He can't plant it there if there's a tree there, right? The logger wants the trees there, but he wants to cut those trees down. What does the environmentalist want? Was it? I believe he called him an environmentalist. Help me out here, somebody.
He wants to keep the ecosystem like it is.
He wants to keep it like it is. Why does he want to do that?
Because he has an ecocentric world viewpoint.
Right. Okay. He has an ecocentric viewpoint, world viewpoint. And here's environmentalists. Now, I want to point out that environmentalists in Rio de Janeiro, he can't. And what are the things that he's really looking at? Is you can't see. He thinks that there's a true value to the rainforest, right? Which implies what? That the other two guys don't really have an accurate value for the rainforest. Huh? What does that do to that person? How does that make that person feel? When you tell the logger his 5 kids aren't really as valuable as the spiritual needs of the community. How does that make that person feel? Angry. Are they going to really listen to you? No, because my 5 kids are the most important things in the world, right? I got to feed the kids. This is the way I feed them. You got to deal with it. Same with the farmer, right? But the environmentalist does point out a few good points, and that's that there is value in the biological diversity. Now, does a peasant farmer really understand what biological diversity is? Probably not. Maybe does, but probably not. And he says, complain about money. Well, sure, they're going to complain about money because money's how they eat. Eating's important, and feeding your children is important. So that's kind of a silly statement. Of course, I think everybody agrees that the forest providing oxygen is important. But do people believe that the forest provides so much of the oxygen on the planet? I'm not sure people really believe it. I mean, some of us do, but I think most people would say, hey, something will happen. I can't believe that we've always burned down the rainforest, right? So what's the big deal? We burn it down now and it'll regrow, and that doesn't make sense to me. So this fact, although true, it's hard for people to really believe. Medicines, not sure that you can convince me that some possible medicine to cure some rare disease is more valuable than me feeding my 5 kids. Where do we put our value, right? So there's this word value. This word value is kind of one of those key words when we're talking about the environment. How do we value what we see? You ask a lot of people, it's eating and drinking, and maybe a new pair of shoes or nice clothes, or warm up here in the north, or cool in the summer. Those things have a lot of value, right? Lifestyle versus nature. What value does nature have? So this is kind of a big argument that we have in our own country, let alone in a place like the rainforest in Brazil. Yeah.
So doesn't the logger value the rainforest and cut down the trees?
Yeah, I think you're right. All of them value the rainforest, but they value the rainforest in different ways, right? The farmer looks at the rainforest as a source of free fertilizer and land, right? Where the logger looks at the rainforest as, man, each tree is worth $10,000 to me. I love that. That's a big deal. And there's a lot of trees. There's millions of dollars worth of trees here. Why are we burning them down? That doesn't make sense to me. The environmentalist says, wait a minute, there are medicines in this forest that we haven't discovered yet. Those trees are creating oxygen for us that we need to breathe. And the biological diversity that exists here exists nowhere else in the world. There are animals and plants, and just in a few feet you can find thousands of species and things that you can't see anywhere else in the world. That's a value, and we can even put a monetary value on it, because what we can do is we can get tourists in here, right? So you can go and get, Islambuli to come down to the rainforest to go look at Blue, right? You all know, you know Blue, right?
No.
From the movie Rio, the cartoon movie Rio, Blue. He was a blue. You ready for a sad? Yeah, you want me to give you a sad statement? The last of the blues are dead, and they've gone extinct just last week, actually. You are living in the 6th great mass extinction. You need to be ready to hear that various species are going extinct, and unless we change some of the things we do, and that conversation has to be had with the world, not just this country. But unless we start changing some of the things we do, you're going to be living through a lot more of these sad stories. Yeah.
Wouldn't it be easier if they'll compromise to the point where the environmentalists will have sections of the land that are protected, the farmer can get his section of the land, and the logger can cut down all the land. He gets half the trees. No. Since he cut down, he can probably get about 75% of the trees, while the farmer gets the other 25%, so he can burn that and put the nutrients into the soil. And then
Yeah, I think there's some kind of compromise is available, right? But I'm not sure if it's quite that straightforward, right? But there has to be some kind of compromise, right? Because the farmers do have to feed their kids. The logger does have to feed their kids. We have to work together. We cannot look at this as okay, we're not touching nature, or we're going to use it all up. They can't be one or the other. It has to be all of it combined. We have to really consider it. Yes, question?
No, I was saying that compromise probably wouldn't work because the farmer, he's going to want more land. The logger, if all the trees cut down, then he can't make no more money. And then...
Well, I mean, you're right. Like I said, it can't be that simple, right? But, I could envision something where a compromise look, I need $300 per acre. I don't want to cut these trees down, but what if you give me $300 per acre to cut down the trees? You cut down the trees. I use that $300 per acre to fertilize and weed the rainforest that I have, right? And then I grow my plants, but on a portion of that, maybe on a quarter of it, I plant some trees. And then in 20 years you come back, or 10 years you come back, and you can cut those trees down and give me more money to fertilize that soil again. So there's a lot of things we can do that we can come up with a system that's, here's the word, this is the word we need. We need to come up with this word. We have to be able to, it has to be sustainable. You see, this system they have now that's described in this case study is not sustainable. At some point, you're going to run out of what? Rainforest. And once you run out of rainforest, then everybody loses. It doesn't make sense. And you can't keep, this system is just not, you just can't keep it up. All right. So let's read some of the background. Let's see. Nowhere on the earth is there a threat of biological impoverishment because the deforestation greater than in the Amazon rainforest, Amazon basin in South America. Amazon supports approximately, now this is a number that's astonishing to me. This number you need to know for your exam, for instance. And I would know that all the values of the rainforest, right? So this paragraph right here gives you all the values of the rainforest. I would make sure I knew those, right? Both to the logger and to the farmer, and I would know the spiritual benefits. And I think we can all agree. We all agree that there are spiritual benefits to a forest, right? Do you guys like to go to parks? You don't like parks. That's interesting. I love parks. We value in Ohio. We value parks. We have a place, an area called the Metro Parks. Who likes to go to farms and parks and petting zoos and things like that? Raise your hand if you like parks. You don't have to like them. If you don't like them, that's fine. All right? Do you like them or not? Yes or no? Raise your hand if you like them. Let's see. Okay, I see the majority of us see the value in parks. All right, raise your hand if you don't like any parks or like no beaches or parks or anything like that. Let's see. Raise your hand. So why didn't you raise your hand either time? Why? It's either one or the other, right? You either like them or you don't. Let's try it again. If I see someone who's not raising their hand, I'm going to call you out on it. So raise your hand if you like parks. Let's see it. All right? And now raise your hand if you don't like parks. All right, why don't you like them? Do you feel brave and want to share with us why you don't like parks at all? Why don't you? Yeah. Remember, I'm recording this, so I don't want to use names. Be quiet now. Come on.
I used to like it when I was little, but now it's boring for real, and I don't go with.
Boring.
I don't go.
So you don't have it. But if you had someone to go with, would you go to a park? Would you go to walk on a path near a stream?
No.
So you don't like streams at all?
No.
Would you? It's interesting.
I don't like it.
Would you go to the beach?
No.
No beach at all.
The only reason why I go is saying I don't like open water.
Okay. And you don't like a stream at all? A brook? Nothing? Okay. Well, most of us, I don't understand it, but I'll accept it. Now let me ask the rest of you. Do you see the value in having nature around us?
Yes.
Right? I mean, even do you see the value, even though you particularly don't like, it's not something that you personally value. Do you see how other people could value it? Okay, all right. Well, that's something. So when we look at the biological impoverishment, that's what we're talking about. And you can go to inner cities in all over the country, and you can find places where they've destroyed nature, where they don't have a central. You know where what Central Park is in New York? Yeah, I've been there as well. It's beautiful. Central Park is the people of New York and in Manhattan value nature. They value it so much that they created a giant swath of land that they said, this is going to be our bit of nature. So I think that no matter where you go, places where they have valued nature, at least to some extent, they've reaped a lot of benefits. And if you look around Cleveland today, you'll see that Sustainable Cleveland has moved towards producing, kind of bringing these bits of nature throughout the city. Do you agree? There's tall grasses and plants. They've redone the beach. The Cleveland Metro Parks have taken over the beach. They've taken down old abandoned homes and put up little parks. A bunch of trees, right? Nature is. Do you think that's improved Cleveland? Do you think that's made it worse? As a person who doesn't like parks, do you value the initiative to bring trees and flowers and grassy fields to the city? So you do see that, at least in part, the nature is valuable, even to you. A person who doesn't like parks. You still, I'm asking. I'm not...
It's valuable, but like some people just like different things.
I understand, but do you see the benefit of, do you find it beautiful to drive through? Yeah.
Very beautiful.
Okay.
It.
Okay. Yeah.
Are there still like a lot of tribes that live in the forest still to this day?
It's a good question. Not a lot that are absolutely native and that don't have. I think there was one tribe that had very little interaction with the Western world, and we had some interaction with them, and I think we devastated them because of disease. Oops. Sorry. So yeah, I think that there's still some that have little. I'll wait for you. I don't want to be rude. So there's some tribes that do have little interaction with the Western world, but not that there aren't that many individuals. Yeah. These are there? That's. Yeah, you can go to the cultural gardens, and there was a celebration this Saturday or Sunday, right? It was Sunday, yeah. Well, I think it was Sunday for sure, but you said Saturday. That's why I said Saturday. Yeah, it was Sunday. It was a big cultural gardens. That's a park system, right down the road. I find it very beautiful, and it's very urban as well. It's not something that is, I would call, roughing it, right? They have ponds and water fountains and roads where and little paths that you can run or walk on, right?
Yeah, I will go down by I will walk down the street go up in the garden I don't think
Got it. I got it. Hey, we all, like you said, but I'm glad that you can see the value in it, even though you personally don't enjoy spending time in it. All right, so we have 50 to 90% of all species on Earth. That's another big number you should know. 50 to 90% of all the species on Earth are in the rainforest, and we're destroying it. Guys, let's assume it's the higher end of that range. 90% of the species on Earth, we're getting rid of 90% of the species on Earth? That's insanity. But that's what it is. This is one of the richest sources of biodiversity, right? Biodiversity. As I said, how many species? There's 300, just as an example, there's 300 tree species per hectare. 300 tree species per hectare. Guys, you can go outside in this neighborhood and you could probably find 8 different species, maybe 10, in a hectare. And there's 300 different species in the same space in the Brazilian rainforest. That's just amazing to me. And this is how beautiful it is. Look how deep, and you've all watched cartoons and movies with it. The trees go straight up, very high, about 500 feet high. I'm sorry, 50 feet high. And 50 feet high is taller than this building. This building's about 30, maybe 40 feet high. Imagine trees that are 50 feet high. 20 feet, 2 stories higher than we are right now. That's insanity, right? And and the whole forest is like that. That's just, I can't even imagine it myself. Yeah.
It says 300 tree species, so does that include plants?
No, that's just trees, right? And then on top of that, you have the orchids and all these amazing plants, Venus flytraps, and all kinds of plants and animals that live there on top of those 300, just trees. So that's just trees, 300 different species. Recent estimates of deforestation suggest. Now here's another amazing figure I'd like you to know for the test. It's a sad one. Somewhere between 1 and 3 million hectares. 1 to 3 million hectares. Imagine that. Now, I guess it's hard to imagine if you don't know what a hectare is. Do you know what a hectare is? What is a heck? What the heck is a hectare? It's similar to an acre. It's not quite. It's actually much bigger. It's equal to, a hectare is equal to 2.471 acres. Now, most of us don't really understand what an acre is either. If I tell you I had an acre of land, is that a lot?
Yes.
Is it? How much is an acre? Let me just say that 2.47 hectares is, get this, 10,000 square meters. So, you know what a meter is. Imagine something that's a meter by a meter. So you got a square that's a meter by a meter. Imagine 10,000 of those. That would be about 2.47 hectares. Or 2.47 acres into 1 hectare. That's a lot of land. Yeah, question?
Isn't an acre, isn't that about the size of a baseball diamond?
I don't think, is an acre the size of a baseball diamond? I don't know. I'm not sure how big that. So an acre, I can tell you this. An acre, I don't know how big a baseball diamond is. That's my problem. I can tell you that an acre is 4,840 square yards. So if I had a yard by yard, 1 acre would be 4,840 of those. I think that's bigger than a baseball diamond. So that's pretty big. That's a lot of land. And what they're saying is that this deforestation in Brazil is somewhere between 1 and 3 million hectares. 1 in 3 million, 10,000 square meters. That's just, It's a big number. I don't know what that means. I can't imagine it. But it's a lot of land that's getting deforested. And if you think about the idea that you got 300 tree species in every hectare, and you're getting rid of 1 to 3 million hectares, that's a lot of trees. Don't you agree? And possibly you're devastating the species of tree, right? Maybe that species of tree no longer exists now because you just got rid of it.
It said 11 to 16 species per day.
And that's the next step. That's the next number I'd like you to know for the exam. 11 to 16 species per day. We are losing them. 11 to 16 species. Now that could be animal, plant, insect, right? Well, with animals it could be mammals or reptiles, amphibians, or insects, who knows. But we're getting rid of 11 to 16 species every single day. So yesterday we got rid of 11 to 16 species. Today we'll be rid of 11 to 16 species. Tomorrow, and very slowly we're getting rid of all these species. Yeah.
Does that include like bacteria?
That's a good question. I'd guess we're losing some bacteria, but bacteria, I'm not sure what the answer to that would be. My guess is not really. But I'm sure that there's some species of bacteria that really rely, and fungi that really rely on a specific ecology, and without that ecology, they won't survive. I'm sure that exists. Yeah?
Why doesn't it go up like past 16 if they're doing it every day? Like, they're not doing
Well, that's a really great question, and it's actually more complicated than it sounds. It's 11 to 16 is an estimate. At some point, you're going to get to a critical point, a critical mass, and you're probably going to start speeding up the number of species that are getting destroyed. Because certain species, I'm sure, depend on the pollination of an insect, that once you get rid of that insect, then all the species that it pollinates are going to die as well. And so there's all kinds of things that happen, what we call trophic collapse. And so we'll understand what trophic collapse is later, but the bottom line is, I don't know when that point's going to be. I can tell you that this is not a good sign, right? At what point does this start to increase? Does it start to get worse? I think pretty soon. But that's just a guess, and I'm fairly ignorant on it because I'm not a rainforest biologist. Yes?
There was a rough estimate that we lose worldwide 150 species a day, and that's including bacteria, which majority of those numbers are bacteria.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. So I believe you read that somewhere. I'm sure you're probably right. You've been right in the past. I don't have that information, right? So I can't verify it or argue it. So let's just go and accept it until we find something better. Okay? So 150 species per day worldwide. This is not unreasonable. It's a reasonable number, right? If you think about Brazil and in the Brazilian rainforest, you're losing 11 to 16 a day. 160 is not deforestation is happening everywhere. It's not just in Brazil, right? You're getting rid of the mahogany forests, and you're cutting down forests for urbanization, and in Africa and in Asia and all over the world. So even in the United States, we're doing it here, aren't we? As we build cities and old farmland and taking down forests to build cities. We call it urban sprawl, and that's happening everywhere. So I could see 100 some odd species. And bacteria, does it include bacteria? As I said, I'd assume so, but I don't have that information. Yeah.
I'm saying, the numbers probably went up because it's like 20 years old from food sources.
Yeah, the numbers probably went up. It's probably worse. I agree. Yeah, these sources are old. It's an interesting case study. Sources are old. The deforestation in Amazon, many different. All right, so these were a series of questions that somebody asked me before I left. Do you have to answer them? And I said yes. I'd like you to try to answer them as best you can in your own words. So let's answer them together. Is deforestation in the Amazon any different than what occurred in industrialized Europe and North America centuries past? That could be yes and it could be a no. I could see both. Let's call this number one. So someone tell me some arguments on why it's not any different. Yeah, go ahead.
Because back in industrial Europe and South America, they also cut down the trees so that they can have more land for building stuff and more wood.
So yeah, in industrial Europe, they cut down a lot of the major rainforests. They changed the ecology. They got rid of a large number of species. For sure, industrial Europe also cut down their forests. And they built cities on top of them and farmland. Most of England, for instance, is now either some kind of cultivated land. It used to be forests. Now it's cultivated like farms or cities. That back table is just going to keep talking and playing and laughing until I move you around the room. So cut down the forest, yes, you're right, they did. And they did negatively impact diversity, didn't they? So they did negatively impact the biodiversity. They did, and I should put bio here, biodiversity, and they did also get rid of a lot of their land. That's absolutely, a lot of their forests. That's absolutely right. But how is it different? So that's how they were similar. How's it different? Is what's happening in the rainforest worse or better, the same? Yeah.
I said it was different in the fact that like today trees are getting taken away a lot faster than they were in the past. Because today we have like chainsaws and like vehicles that get like pull trees right out of the ground, but before that you like axes, you know what I'm saying?
All right, so you know what? That's really a key point, that things happen a lot faster now because of technology. I agree with that. What else might be different about cutting down the rainforest versus not? Versus the stuff that happened in Europe. Anybody have an idea? Yeah, the rainforest is larger in more than one way, right? It's larger.
It's probably not as many species.
That's right. There are more species in the rainforest, right? And you knew all that, didn't you? You guys are saying this. Am I telling you this? No, you're saying it. So you guys could have answered this, couldn't you? That's a lie. That would be yes, because you guys are answering it. So obviously you could have. There's more species in the rainforest. They're larger, a larger size to the rainforest, right? The method in which they're taking it down, which we already kind of alluded to that with the technology, use of technology, but also where they're burning. In Europe, they didn't really use a slash and burn method. They cut it down using axes. But that also the fact that you have a lot of rain in the rainforest. That's why it's called a rainforest, because it rains a lot. Yes?
I thought since we're cutting down forests, we're gonna lose a lot of our power because some people put motors in the rivers, so when the water runs, they can create electricity.
So you're saying that technology will also increase the pollution versus what happened then. Yeah, well, industrialized Europe was really famous for its pollution. So, yeah, I would agree that in that they're similar. That they're both equally polluting the environment. Now, should Americans develop their lands as they see fit? Amazonians. So should the Amazonians, the people that live in the Amazon, should we just leave them alone? Should the government of Brazil leave them alone? Even if it's obviously we can't do anything about it. We don't live in Brazil. Nobody's going to go to war. I mean, I guess you could say you want to go to war about this, but I don't know why anyone. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I don't see that as something. It's a valuable option. But I assume if you really felt strongly enough, we could go to war and try to take over the Amazon. Is that something that? But if we assume that you are now the Brazilian government, should the Brazilian government allow them to do whatever they want? Yes or no?
It depends.
On what?
A lot of things.
So the real question here is regulation versus no regulation. We have this problem here in the United States. I don't know if you know this, but a couple of years ago, a bunch of armed men took over a federal building. Just a couple of years ago, they were ranchers, and they were sick of the government telling them what to do with their own land, with the federal lands. The federal government said you cannot move your cows, your bulls onto federal lands. They can't eat this grass over here. They can't move. We put this fence up. If we catch your cattle over here, we're gonna fine you money. They were so upset about it. They took over a piece of a federal government by force. Some of those guys went to prison, and the president actually, I think, pardoned them or something like that. I'm not sure. I'm not up with the details on that. But the point is that they were upset over regulation. They were upset that the government's going to tell them what they can do on, what they're able to do. And they don't feel the government should be telling them what to do. So you can imagine that the Amazonians, those farmers, those environmentalists, those loggers, what are they going to do?
Revolt.
They're going to also probably feel the same way, right? This is their land. How are you telling me what to do with my own land? So this is an argument whether they should or not. We're not going to solve this here, right? Millions of people around the world haven't been able to solve this. There's a whole political movements are organized around either one way or another way. But the point is what? There's two major opinions. Either we regulate or we don't. And should the government regulate or not? What's going to happen if there is no regulation now?
They're going to run themselves into the ground.
They're going to run it out. They're going to run out of forests. The rainforest will be gone. And so the consequences of no regulation, of not intervening, is that we will not have a rainforest and probably within your lifetime. It means less oxygen, air quality is going to be poorer, right? That means that most of the species that the Amazon holds are gone. Any medicines, any secrets to long life and happy life are done for. Do you agree? That's all gone. And eventually, all those Amazonians themselves will be gone because they won't be able to raise any food. They won't be able, and I don't know about you, but no, I don't think anybody in the United States is going to send them food. They won't be able to keep up their lifestyle, so everybody loses. This is what's called, and write this down, this is an important idea. This is what's called the tragedy of the commons. This is what happens anytime people have common land or common water where we have to decide what to do with it. You might say, I own this land, I'm going to have a factory on it, and I can do what I want. This is America. But what if that factory pollutes our water supply? What if that factory pollutes our air? Do I have a right to do that? It's that tragedy of the commons. Yeah.
About the last question, the one should the Amazonians that one? I said they should because probably their ancestors were there for the longest time, and they were the ones to survive there without hurting the forest.
Yeah, I could see that. That's a reasonable argument that maybe we should follow ancestor. The problem with that argument, though, is that their ancestors did slash and burn. So this is an old way of doing things. This isn't new. Some scientists didn't say, okay, let's start doing this. Do peasant farmers actively clearing forests value their environment any different than world conservation organizations, you or I? Yeah.
I said some of the workers of the World Conservation thing might be in it just for the money, but like the peasant farmer might do it like, 'cause like this is like he has to feed his family or something.
So you're saying that their viewpoints are slightly different, that one might be in it for money because they run some kind of NGO or some kind of organization that makes money off this, where the other is looking at it to try to save his family. I can see that argument, but I guess the question is, does this peasant farmer value the land or not? Do they care about the land? Sure they do. They care about the land, but really what are they worried about? Living. So their perspective is different. And, all right, so their values are different is the key. Where the peasant farmer values the land for its ability to feed his family, the World Conservation Organizations really value the land as a resource for the world, as a resource for biodiversity, for new medicines, for oxygen supply for the planet. These are big deals, but where do the peasants, farmers' rights end, and where do the rights of the world end? Right? All right, 4, or even their own country, even their own government. Where does that lie? Where does that begin and end? What does the world stand to lose by watching the destruction of the tropical rainforest? What are you going to lose? Why should you care? Especially those of you that don't really like forests and that are going to sleep right now in class. Somebody wake her up. All right, get up. Sit up straight. So why is it that the people what are you going to lose if the entire rainforest is lost? Nothing? You're going to be okay with it? You're going to keep playing your Xbox and stay at home, and I don't know what you do at home that makes it so interesting that you don't want to go outside, but yeah.
We're gonna lose air quality.
So that's right. You're going to lose air quality, which I think, even if you don't like the forest, I hope you understand that the air quality is a big deal. That's the air you breathe. It's the same air. A lot of that oxygen is produced down there in that rainforest. Yeah, what else are you going to lose? You are going to lose. Medicines, possible cures. Maybe some of you, God forbid, have a disease that the cure for that disease that could have allowed you to live 15, 20 years longer than you do end up living, that cure to that disease is in that rainforest, but it's not going to be there because you're going to destroy it. Hold on a second. Plant-based, plant and animal. And what else? Yeah.
Maybe like fruits or something? You start to lose fruits more?
Fruits? Yeah, there could be new fruits, can I put new produce? Because I don't want to just think about fruits, but it could be new food sources, right? It could be vegetables or fruits that maybe these plants can produce high nutrition, decent calorie vegetables or fruit that can grow in many different places and solve some of our biggest food problems, and we're going to get destroyed because we'll never know it's there because we're getting rid of what? Hundreds of what is it? What was the number? 11 to 16 species a day. One of those species could solve our food problem. We'll never know. Yeah?
I said animals
Yeah, it's definitely getting rid of animal habitat. Habitat is a big deal. Now look at all these answers, man. We sat here for about half an hour and an hour, and we got through page 2 of this project. Now listen carefully, because this is what I'm expecting. When I look at your work, I expect that you've done this kind of work. This is work that we've done together. Now, did I give you this information? Sure. What could you have done? What could you have done? You could have looked it up. You were sitting in this classroom with your phones. Instead of going on texting each other, you could have looked this number up. So I expect that you're going to be able to do this work. I don't expect that I'm going to get excuses. Yes, so don't put anything away. Then it says, why are tropical forests being cleared in the Amazon basin at such alarming rate? Historically, deforestation has been caused by the interaction of many factors, 7 of which are presented here for simplicity. Now, you need to know these 7 for the next test. So 1, there's abundant forest resources. So naturally, people that grew up near the rainforest, what do they think? That it's everywhere. It's going to last forever, right? That's how Americans thought of America when they first got here. They thought that the resources of America would last forever. They could cut down and build whatever they wanted, destroy it, because you know what? It's cheap. There's a lot of it. Some people still think that way, even though it's no longer true. In fact, it was never true, but certainly not true now. The need for peasant farmers to earn a livelihood, so people have to eat. So if you want to stop the rainforest, what do you have to, rainforest destruction, what do you have to address? All 7 of these, right? Including how are these people going to eat? Brazilian government policies to construct highways, subsidize agriculture, and relocate farmers into the forest. Do you know that the Brazilian government would take you and your whole village and they put you in a forest, say, here, go make another life, and they build a city where you were? Why are you putting that stuff away? I didn't say put stuff away. I know it's 8:57. I was going to dismiss you in a minute. I just don't like it when people are taking in that initiative. It's very insulting. All right, we're going to finish this tomorrow, and this is the kind of work that I expect from you when I'm not here or I'm here. And some of you falling asleep in class, not paying attention, not participating in the discussion. This is stuff that's going to end up hurting you. When your parents ask me, why is my kid not learning? Why is my kid not doing well on the exam? I'm going to play this video for them. Okay? Because this is a discussion I want to have with your mom and your dad. Recording. The Brazilian government policies are to construct highways to connect Brazil, because Brazil's a big area. That makes sense, right? But every time you build a highway, there's all kinds of problems. Not the least of which are runoff and segmentation of the forest. And there's all kinds of other issues that come with highways. Of course, there's cars that drive on it are going to be polluting, so that's an issue. Although Brazil is now all biofuel, so they're pretty much carbon neutral, at least for their vehicles, at least last I heard. Brazilian government policies to construct highways, subsidize agriculture. Now, why is that important? Do you know what the word subsidize means? All right. So subsidize, let me see, where is that word? Subsidize means to make more profitable. We do that with our farmers. I wish my pencil were working. I'm sorry about that. To make more profitable. We do that with our own farmers. Say what? No, unfortunately. You can't go to the restroom 10 minutes before the end of class. So to make more profitable means, look, we got all these farmers that can't make the bills. They can't feed their kids. So instead of solving the problem, why don't we just give them money? So they can sell their food, they can sell their produce for $10 a pound. We'll make sure they get $15 a pound. That way they can keep doing it year from year to year. That's subsidies. The oil companies in America get subsidies. Our farmers get subsidies. A lot of people get subsidies. Some people call it welfare for the corporations, corporate welfare. Other people argue it's a politicized word. But in any case, the point is, the government is paying someone more than that thing is worth. That's a subsidy. Maybe they'll give you $10,000 if you keep farming, even though you can't really make money off of selling your foods. If you get $10,000 and you sell your food for cheap, then maybe you make enough to keep going. That kind of idea. That's called a subsidy. Why is that a bad thing? Because that encourages people to do what?
That's what.
No? Actually, encourages them to keep working. Because if you keep working, you get the subsidy. But these are farmers. Where are they gonna grow their crops? On the rainforest. So they got to slash and burn the rainforest and grow more land. And then they relocate. Here's something else the Brazilian government did, at least back when this was written. They relocated farmers to the forest. So you're growing land here, you're growing your crops, but now the crops start failing because there's not enough. You don't have enough fertilizer to fertilize the fields. We want to build a city here. Where are we going to put you? We're going to move you. Where are we going to move you to? Rainforest. Here, go burn down some land and grow your food and leave us alone. Probably not a good idea. So those are kind of three big points that the government could either change or regulate what they're doing. The cattle industry forced manipulation of peasant farmer land rights and the marginalization of these farmers to the frontier. So one of the things that the cattle industry needs is land, right? You need if you're going to grow cattle, if you're going to raise cattle, you need a lot of land. They have to eat a lot of grass or corn or whatever you're going to feed them. So what they've done, because they make a lot of money from cattle, they sell beef all over the world. Brazilian beef is famous, and they sell it all over the world. It's one of their big exports. What these corporations, these cattle corporations do, and we've talked about industrialized farming, right? These giant corporations literally push the farmers to the edge of the rainforest so that they can go and work and grow their foods over there and leave us alone so we can raise our cattle and our corn for our cattle. And those of you that want to go, that are peasants, right? There's a difference between peasant farmer and the corporate farmer, right? The corporation takes giant hectares worth of land and grows them all the one crop and sells it for the beef in order to make a lot of money off that expensive beef. The peasant farmer does things in a smaller scale. So you want to save the rainforest, you're going to have to deal with the cattle industry in Brazil. Land speculation. Does anybody have a clue of what land speculation is? Ladies? Do you have an idea of what land speculation is? Maybe you should be listening to me then instead of talking to each other. Just a thought. Land speculation. That's when you go and you say, okay, well, I'm going to buy this land for $50 because I think I can do what? Make a profit. I think I can sell it for $1,000. So these land speculators will come along and they'll buy, giant chunks of the Amazon, thinking that they'll be able to build a city. They actually built this Brazilian capital right out of the middle of a rainforest. They took a giant chunk of land and built the new capital of Brazil right in the center of the rainforest. So land speculation, making money, development, land developers, right? Building malls or cities or towns. Rapid degradation of pasture due to poor soil quality and cost of reclamation. Rapid degradation. What does that mean? Rapid degradation of pastures. Yeah.
That's the best, but is it like them, like destroying a lot of land?
It's them destroying their pastures. It's them destroying the land. Why are you out of your seat, dear? Could you not get out of your seat again? Is that possible? So rapid degradation of pastures just means that the pastures that would normally in America that would last for a long time, they get worn down very quickly. They lose nutrients because of erosion, in part because of all the rain, but also because the forest floor in Amazon does not have a lot of natural nutrients. That's not how the rainforest works. We'll talk tomorrow more about how a rainforest works. So degradation of the pastures due to poor quality and the cost of reclaiming it, that goes back to adding fertilizer and soil and water. I will dismiss you at 10:57, but it is not 10:57 yet. So you're putting your stuff away. I will deal with you individually. I can promise you that. Oversupplies of beef and timber leading to price deflation and debt with banks, industrialized nations, large debt exacerbates timber expenses. If you oversupply enough, too much beef makes each cattle worth that much less, which makes you have to raise more cattle to make money. It's a vicious cycle. All right, now class is over. 11:57 exactly.